Welcome to the Marshall Pruitt Podcast in your week in IndyCar, a listener Q&A show. Well, we are 2 months now? 3 almost into an off season, y'all. Last race of 2025. It actually took place the very end of August, and here we are creeping towards the end of November. It feels like we haven't done anything IndyCar for way too long, but hopefully what we gather for each week here will be a little bit of something to help expedite the hunger pangs for open wheel racing. I want to say a big thanks to y'all for sending in all the questions that you did. Our friend Jerry Sudduth, who puts together the questions each week for us, says we had about 900 words worth of questions, so we're going to get through as many as we can, and I won't set a time expectation, but in a reasonable amount of time. And that's a bit of a floating, it's a cop-out. It's what it is. I just always say, you can try and do it about an hour, and then I always fail. So, but I will indeed try and keep it to roughly an hour, but we'll let it just be a floating target. How's that? Huge thanks as well to our dear friends and long-standing show partners at the Justice Brothers, justicebrothers.com, makers of just mighty fine automotive chemicals, lubricants, and cleaners, widely used in motor racing as well. And then the great purveyors, as I lose my voice or go through puberty or maybe both. The great folks at torontomotorsports.com, purveyors of modern motor racing memorabilia, hats, t-shirts, books, stickers, models, everything you love from IndyCar, IMSA, Formula One. They got it all. Please pay them a visit. Take some of that home. And then our own thepruittstore.com. And finally finished adding all of the books that I'm looking to sell that I have close by. I feel like more could be added for sure. But I think the round numbers, round about 100 books added to the pruittstore.com. And some of you have been really kind and amazing in jumping in right away. I think probably sold a dozen of them already, if not more, and haven't really done much to tell folks about them. So just want to let you know that there's, and my voice is going again. I'm just going to keep it in. No editing the nonsense out. But I will take a sip of coffee to hopefully lubricate the good old flappy gums here. Would encourage you to pay a visit to justicebrothers.com, torontomotorsports.com, and then our own thepruittstore.com. See if there's anything there that you really want. Take home for yourself as a gift, family, for upcoming holidays, you name it. And time permitting, I will try and add some more things. Got a lot of magazines and I think stickers and patches and I don't know what all else. Programs maybe to put in there, hero cards. I've been trying to get organized with that stuff, y'all, and did more of that recently here last weekend, and I think I've identified just about everything I want to truly get rid of, but that's only the stuff that is at hand. There's a whole, who knows how many crates and crates and crates sitting in our storage, stuff I haven't seen since we moved in 2019 that I'll probably want to get rid of once I get to it. So anyways, that's the little preamble there. Want to say a final thanks and just general appreciation to many of y'all who have kindly supported my new attempts here to do more video so far. I mean, we're only 2 days into the week, but try and do more video, get that content up on my YouTube page. I believe just YouTube/Marshall Pruitt would work. And then on Instagram and X and also Facebook. So yeah, most places covered. So spoke with our guy, Ryan Hunter Ray, speaking to him about his move to Arrow McLaren there for the Indy 500 and some bigger stuff. So did some of that last week. I did a little piece yesterday talking about Penske and a lot of the internal changes that they've made and are making looking into 2026 on the IndyCar side. Just spent about a half hour recording with our pal, IMSA President John Doonan, talking about some sporty car stuff. So try and get that up here shortly, but just want to try and do more. I know, if anything, I'm just trying to match my own evolving consumption habits. And although I make my living as a professional writer and reporter and journalist and blah, 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 um, I do read a lot of words each day across newspapers, digital, through their apps. But I read tons of words per day. Love the written story. That'll never change. It's how I support myself and my wife. But I also do indeed really like just short form, or let's just say not overly long video form as well. So as I consume more of that every day and it makes me happy, I'm just going to try and match that energy with, I don't know if I'm going to get original videos out every day, but whether it's podcasty type stuff or whatever, going to make more of an effort there. So appreciate y'all for supporting the initial efforts to do that. And yeah, I think we're about 500-ish subscribers away, 400 or 500 away from reaching 10,000 on my YouTube page. So if you have an interest, might check it out and might think of joining in there. All right, before we get rolling with your questions, mention one thing, and it was just very random. It was mentioned in a call to me about 2 hours ago by someone in the industry in the good old IndyCar paddock. We were talking about lots of things and cannot repeat most of it. But one of the items, they asked me, what's going on with Stingray Rob? To which I said, I don't know. What is going on with Stingray Rob? Not knowing the context of what I was being asked. Was then posed the question of, oh, you haven't seen the Juncos Hollinger Racing website? To which I said, no. Should I? They said yes. So I went and typed in, I think, JuncosHollingerRacing.com and got a 404, no idiot, that ain't it, response back. And then just typed in Juncos Hollinger, nothing else. And it pulled up their homepage. And it looks like they have a newish website, which is awesome. Looks good, seems to be very functional. But there was nothing on the homepage to give away the answer. And my friend on the other end was not wanting to tell me. They were wanting me to discover on my own. So saw on the homepage, which I'm looking at here, it says, our ambition is clear. Win! All caps, bold green, etc. Has next race info, team gear, the cars, dare to be different, the drivers. I'm like, okay, well, if they're asking about Stingray, obviously that's in the category of drivers. So I went to the menu, went to the drivers tab, and hey, who's up front there? Well, the driver named lead IndyCar driver for Juncos Hollinger Racing, Rinus VK. Beautiful quote from our friend from Holland, from the Netherlands. Says, this is a team with real momentum, high ambitions, and a clear vision for the future. There's a shared determination to compete at the highest level, and I'm confident that together we can achieve great things. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Love it. Let me scroll down. And now I see what my friend was talking about. We know, because Stingray's manager, Peter Rossi, has told me and told us, put this in print, mentioned it on the show, that Stingray is going to be back next season. I said 0% chance someone else is driving the car. Peter Rossi responded saying 0% chance. So got it. Can't tell you whether this is just what appears to be a new website and them working through some kinks, or it's missing some information. But I can just tell you that my friend within the paddock, who was curious as to why I didn't already know about this, pointed me to this page where it has Rinus VK and below TBA, to be announced, the acronym TBA, and a silhouette of a driver. So Stingray's name is not named. Stingray is nowhere on this page, not just absent of information, but actually listed TBA. A human being, we assume, would have had to type those letters in. And then the image chosen is a stylish one using Juncos Hollinger Racing's colors of black and green, and maybe there's some gray in there, and just a silhouette. These are the things that tend to suggest the answer is not ready for public consumption. So I have no information for you about Stingray Rob and whether he is driving or not driving for this team next year. I can tell you, however, and having just seen this late in the day, it's well past business hours in Indianapolis. I'm on the West Coast, so it's dang near dinner time there. A little late to call folks and ask, but just sharing here that it was presented to me just a little while ago. That can't tell you the context, can only tell you that TBA, to be announced, is listed as Renus's teammate. If we're going true retro back in the day, Arsenio Hall show, I would extend my long Arsenio Hall finger and put it to my temple and say, things that make you go, And for those of you who are younger, that was indeed a reference from like 1992, and I apologize. All right, all that stuff said, preamble is done. Why don't we dive into the show here, once again put together by our friend Jerry Sudoth. And where is Jerry starting us off? Oh, it's a good one. Ken Anderson, say, MP, Jerry, hope you have some enjoyable plans for the holiday seasons. Seasons? Sure, we'll go plural. Quick question. Has a contract been signed with Dallara? Well, I will always urge, Ken, don't hesitate to put in more words, because this one, yes, for sure. Contract has been signed with Dallara. Many contracts from many people, suppliers, teams, you name it. I assume this is related to IndyCar. I assume this is related to the future car, but without those bits of information, left to kind of assume. And I'm trying not to make an ass out of you and me with that assume. But yeah, so just a little FYI, Ken, when asking questions, do not hesitate to actually fully explain what you're looking to have answered. So if I assume we're talking IndyCar, I assume we're talking 2028. Yes, Dallara has been, and I'm probably guessing for the rest of my life, will be the official supplier, sole chassis supplier of IndyCar. So if my assumptions are correct, there we go. If not, if you're talking about Indy NXT / Indy Lights, other formulas, sports cars, I mean, they do indeed make Cadillacs, IMSA GTP car. I mean, a lot of ways we could answer this, brother. Our pal JJ Gertler. Thank you, by the way, JJ, for taking some of those books out of my life and lightening the good old memorabilia load. JJ says, it's hot stove league season, the time when we have the fence full conversation that it's probably way too early for. I wonder if AI was trying to interpret some of what was being asked here. But nonetheless, those are the words that were sent in. So Ken didn't send enough. JJ, maybe those were what you sent in, but who knows? Maybe Siri didn't exactly get what you were asking. But nonetheless, JJ says, now that we've got willpower and the subsequent after effects sorted out, whose contracts are ending at the end of the 2026 season? All right. Bearing in mind that I am probably going to be wrong about at least one, if not more. But let me open what I need to look through so I can give you a name-by-name accounting that is hopefully somewhat accurate. All right, why don't we start at the top? Santino Ferrucci, I believe he's got more time. I could be wrong, but I believe the Foyt team is buttoned up with at least one more year for its drivers after 2026. We can look at Andretti Global, good old Andretti Global, and they are sitting on, I don't know if it's truly open, but they do indeed have what's probably the highest profile known in advance, call it vacancy or contract ending, and that being Marcus Ericsson. So many of us assume, just like good old Kirkwood going to AJ Foyt Racing for his rookie season, and then getting drafted straight into Andretti the following year when a seat was available. I think we have the same assumption that, barring something crazy that happens with our guy Marcus Ericsson, I mean, I hope it does for his sake. Love that guy. Hope he has an amazing year, and Andretti would be insane to not extend him. But if that were to not happen, I think we all logically assume that young Dennis Hauger heading off to Coyne for 2026 is meant to backfill that position with Marcus unless extraordinary things happen. Arrow McLaren, Pato signed seemingly for the rest of his life. Nolan Siegel, end of his contract at the end of 26. Christian Lundgaard, end of his contract at the end of 26. I feel pretty confident in saying here that unless there is a crazy, terrible year that happens for reasons unknown with Lundgaard, they will extend him well before they get to the end of the season. He obviously would have to say yes to that, but being wanted by Arrow McLaren, team that was second best in the championship last year, I feel like that's something you hold on to. I would say Nolan, he will need to have a breakout year of breakout years, I would think, to keep that seat. Looking to Chip Ganassi Racing, Alex Palou is going to be driving there until he retires. Scott Dixon, same thing. He'll be back, not just next year, but we don't know how long Scott wants to continue. It's not something he really cares too much to talk about, simply because as long as he feels he is competitive, he's going to keep coming back. He just finished third in the championship. So if Scott, for whatever reason, were to decide at the end of 2026 that he wanted to stop full time, then that is when we would know that. Again, famous last words, but Dixie does not feel like the type to do the farewell tour and announcing things in advance. I've seen nothing from him to suggest that he's anything less than ready to keep going for a long time. Kiffin Simpson, he'll be there as long as he wants as well. So nothing at Ganassi unless Dixie decides to tap out at the end of the year. We don't know on the Coyne side, right? We don't know who's going to be driving that second car or first car, whatever we want to call that. Hauger's the only one confirmed there, so we'll see where that ends up. But yeah, already spoke about Dennis and the strong held belief that he could be one and done at Coyne, but not exactly one and done in the series. Take a look at Ed Carpenter Racing. Don't know the duration of Rossi's contract, but knowing that this will be year 2 for him, would say that it feels like he probably signed a 2-year with an option, if not a 3. They love him. I believe he loves them. So I can't think of that number 20 ECR Chevy becoming available after 2026. So again, famous last words, but I feel like he's there and going to be there for a little while. His teammate, good old Christian Rasmussen, he does indeed head into the final year of his contract. That kid not just seems like someone they would want to hold on to, but is that team going to be in a competitive enough place to where he would not want to go somewhere else? I would think a Arrow McLaren would be talking to him about that number 6 car that Nolan is driving. Again, if Nolan does not have a breakout year, truly love the kid, want him to have a long and successful IndyCar career. Arrow McLaren, provided their financials are straight across all 3 cars, I'm sure would want to have winning drivers in all 3. So, would say Christian is somebody definitely keep in mind. If there were to become a vacancy at Ganassi, if there was one at Andretti, if it's a front-running team, a team that is ahead of Ed Carpenter Racing, I would expect them to be talking to that kid about recruiting him after 2026. If we look at Juncos Hollinger Racing, we would expect Renus to be there on a multi-year deal. We can already wonder what's going to happen with that second car since we don't know, but of the contract that we believe was in place for Stingray Rob, that was meant to be a 2-year. And so if by chance he's back in the car and the website is a nothing burger, cool. It's a 1-year deal. I'm sorry, 1 year left on the deal. So that seat would be available at the end of 2026 for sure, if it isn't already available to someone else for 2026 itself. Meyershank Racing, good old Fro, Rosie, and his teammate Marcus Armstrong heading into the final last years of their contracts. I think Armstrong just simply signed a 1-year extension for next year. Rosie, I think this is coming to the end of his multi-year, but Meyershank Racing could be looking to make a change or stay the same. We don't know, but in their case, both drivers would be out of contract at the end of the year. Prema Racing, both drivers are signed to multi-year deals. If they answer the bell, then who knows? Can't really say what would happen there until we know more about the team and what they're going to look like from a business structure next year, assuming they move forward, knowing that they need to find new funding. Is that from a large angel investor, co-owner, whatever it is, and that person just funds it to continue as is? Is there a funded driver who brings a lot of money to take over one of the cars, and then they pay one of the two drivers, or who knows, both drivers to not? Again, there's a lot of permutations, so hard to say on Prema. But if they were to continue, say, as is, I believe they would have, they could have 2 vacancies at the end of 2026, unless they happen to sign 3-year deals, which, again, norm is usually a 2-year with a team option. Fairly rare when it's a driver option. Rahal Letterman Lanigan just announced a multi-year extension for Louis Foster, so he'll be there for a while. Graham Rahal, I believe, has 2 more years on his contract, so there's that. Not sure who's going to be in the car for in the third car next year, so definite question there. And then finally, Davey Malukas coming in. He'll be there for a while at Team Penske. McLaughlin signed a multi-year deal this past season. Newgarden, I don't know. Just need to reach out to him and ask. So, yeah, decent amount of potential vacancies, whether it is a team with a driver who's going to be out of contract at the end of 2026 that we get a feeling they probably want to make a change there, or drivers who are out of contract and maybe looking to move and improve their lots in the paddock. So, yeah, interesting year coming up, Mr. Gertler. Craig Irish, how you doing, Craig? It says, your recent discussion of teams who are on the edge financially was alarming. Why do they not get some share of the TV revenue or gate receipts? Don't the teams share in the TV revenue in most sports? Certainly do in the stick and ball sports. Instead, they have to subsist on sponsorships and the leader circle money. All true. Keep in mind, this is the way it's, I won't say always been, but for the majority of time, this is the way it's been in IndyCar. So call back to last week's little thing about paddock financials. And if I covered this off, I apologize if I'm repeating, but think about the stick and ball sports for the most part. You love your Major League Baseball, football, basketball, NHL, whichever. These are all franchise situations. There is a big mother trucker, big mother sanctioning body, organizing body, big business behind the entire thing. So those 28 teams in this sport, or 32 in that one, they're all franchisees. They buy in. They might own the individual teams, but those teams are part of a bigger interconnected business structure to the mothership. So the board of governors for whichever sale, the Lakers, it's the this, it's the that. These sales don't just happen independently. Someone decides to buy them and then boom, they're just magically a part of the NBA or Major League Baseball. You have the other owners or a board of governors or whatever the business structure is, Craig, that accepts the sale, accepts the new owners, and basically allows them into that ownership club, even though the people doing that, coming into it, buying the thing, are usually spending billions of dollars to buy that team and effectively join the club. Well, the buy-in prices being as high as they are have gotten that way because these things are so lucrative. Coming back to those individual teams, again, in just about every major stick and ball sport, is the TV revenue. And they all get their cut. They all get their share. And they get the ticket sales. And they get merch. And they get yada, yada, right? Huge income generator. You have annual payrolls, 100 million, 175 million, or whatever crazy numbers in whatever sport. And you go, how do you pay the athletes, put on these events, do these things, and actually still make a profit? And you go, well, clearly they do, because they're paying more than ever. So that's stick and ball sports. You look at NASCAR, you look at Formula One. What do they have? NASCAR has their charter system where there is true TV revenue share and real business ties. Formula One, more like a stick and ball sport with a genuinely exclusive ownership club, 10 teams. Now it's stretched out to 11, but not many. And they do huge rev shares, right? Broadcast, you name it. All that comes back to the teams. There's a variety of ways that happens through championship points earned, constructors, and yada, yada, yada. But there are strong business ties and methods for money to come back in significant ways to all of the aforementioned teams, leagues, and so on. There is no such thing in IndyCar, no such thing in IMSA, SRO, NHRA. There's no ties like that. So when Penske Entertainment does a huge TV deal with NBC, Fox, whomever, Amazon, I'm looking to the future here and dreaming a little bit, but with whomever, there's nothing written into the charters that says, and the teams that are included in this charter get X percentage of that income. The events put on by IndyCar, and they put on a lot of their own events. The gate, the money coming in from tickets and hot dog sales, and not going to the teams. It's going to the owner of the series. We've had Fox Corporation buy in 33% of Penske Entertainment, therefore getting a third of IndyCar, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and so on. Got it. Well, whatever money's coming in, which is great, but there's no business obligation. There's no franchise structure in IndyCar. So I hear you. I'd love for that to be the case. The CART IndyCar series did go to a franchise system for a while. 80s, late 80s, 90s. I'm forgetting the exact year that it started, but it went on for a while. I don't know if it was hailed as the greatest success. Need to reminisce about that with our friend John Oriovitz, great author, reporter from back then as well. Maybe we can get through some of that in a upcoming video podcast episode. But this is a thing that I'm sure every IndyCar team owner would love to have happen for Penske Entertainment through revised charter system, the creation of a new franchise system, something would receive annual payouts from TV contract, ticket sales, all the other money-making things. They seem to be happy-ish so far with the charter system in and of itself. Not saying they're all happy, but the majority who've spoken to me about it, that I've asked about it, have said positive things about the charter. I often then ask, okay, but the charter brings you no money, no annual money. Realize that the leader circle, that's been ongoing for a long time, predates the charters by, 20-ish years, if not more. There is going to be an adjustment to the leader circle, which I think I mentioned. Going to add about $500,000 to it per contract for the top 22 in the entrance championship from last season. So that's great. And whether that's money being applied from the investment from Fox Corporation, or wouldn't pretend to know where Penske Entertainment is allocating the extra money for the leader circle from. But the everything else that you mentioned, for the folks who put on the show, the folks who own the cars, own the trucks, pay the employees, pay the drivers, pay the engine lease, pay the tire lease, put them on planes, put them in hotels, feed them, do all those things. Like the actual, we'll just call them the players who show up and put on the game. In the stick and ball world, they are paid in general insane amounts because of the insane amounts being generated that then get filtered down through the teams to them through that strong business relationship. That same dynamic does not exist in IndyCar. There's no blame to put on Penske Entertainment or anyone else, because it's not as if this existed prior to Penske Entertainment's purchase of IndyCar. The Holman George family did not set up a structure where they welcomed the same entrance. Effectively, everybody who's in IndyCar today in some shape was there in 2019 when it was last owned by the Holman George family and owned for decades and decades by them. At no point in time did they set up any kind of franchise, we're going to give you a lot more money type scenario. So just sharing. I know it's easy to point fingers here, but it'd be stupid to, because no one is rejecting their Good Samaritan duties by not implementing this today. But there is certainly a case to make, Craig, that while this hasn't been done and hasn't existed for decades upon decades, it sure would be something to consider, since it does indeed make Formula One, NASCAR teams to some degree, makes their lives a lot easier. But would this sharing of revenue, sharing of whatever income that the quote players are generating for the owners of the series, are things at the series level strong enough financially to weather that? It's the other component here, which we didn't get into last week. Spoke about how razor thin the profit margins are for some IndyCar teams, and it's rough in more areas of the paddock than we'd want. Got it. Would say can't look at Roger Penske's success in business, his personal wealth or business profits in other areas, as having any relevance in the conversation with IndyCar. Just because Roger's made a quote fortune in other things over the past 50 years doesn't mean that's IndyCar's money, nor is it something he should feel compelled to just give to anybody. Knowing that IndyCar has a budget, and a pretty strict budget to work from, are things healthy enough with money coming into the series from sponsors, from auto manufacturers, from its TV contract, to warrant handing out much bigger slices to the teams? I don't know the answer to that, but I feel like if that was the case, Penske, knowing the success that he has in so many other areas of the world in business, I do feel like there would be a bigger slice passed along if it was truly sitting there to double a leader circle to 3.5 million a year or 4 or whatever. It's an assumption, right? So we're coming back to the making an ass out of you and me here. But as much as Roger runs this as a strict and straight business, would also say that he hears from his team owners, knows what they're going through, and if he saw the ability to readily share more, I feel like that would be something that was taken seriously and at least considered. If and when the team owners who seem to be mostly satisfied with the current charter structure were to take a more aggressive stance and say no, bigger slice, double that leader circle, franchise, something, give us the gate, give us a portion, give us percentages of all kinds of areas that we help make happen. Yeah. For those of us who are old enough to have gone through IndyCar's last Civil War, which wasn't the first, but it was by all means the biggest and most major with the split, we all just get along, man. All right, why don't we go to Chris Albrecht? Says, Marshall, best to you, your wife, and your cats. Thank you. I had Rosie in here. She's left. Rocky, yeah, it was his birthday a couple days ago. He's gone. And yeah, going to get this done here and then start to ramp things down and enjoy our 20th wedding anniversary tomorrow. So anyways, Rossi mentioned on his podcast that Firestone was testing not only different tire compounds for Phoenix, but different widths as well. It says, related to tire sizes, when I watch old kart races, the tires look massive. How much of tire and wheel size has changed over the years? And how much do the changes affect performance? And how would a change to tire size or width affect today's car? All good stuff, Chris. Would also mention that it's good to hear you caught Rossi's mention of that on his podcast. Wrote about that, I think, almost immediately after the test took place. I would have read about that. And yeah, from Scott Dixon, I believe, we spoke after the first morning of running and mentioned running of different tire widths, or width, I should say. If I remember correctly, it was a wider rear tire, and I believe a half-inch wider is what I recall. The tire sizing, I don't believe, is massively different from the kart days. I'd have to look, and I apologize. It's just not numbers that I have committed to my brain, but would say that while today's version of the Dallar DW12 is slimmer and svelter, not a word, than maybe other versions. If I look at the average kart car, not from the 80s, those were a little porky, but especially in the 90s, they were really narrow, missile-like things, really tapered, wasted in heavily. To me, at least, the tires stood out size-wise, because I've had the same thought. Looking at a lot, just my own photos of kart cars, particularly from the 90s, where it's like, man, those tires look massive. Then I also realized, well, it's because the cars tended to fall away a bit, right? Cars pretty narrow, low, etc. And so the wheels and tires, at least in my mind, that's the answer, really did stand out. I don't think there's much difference with today's wheels and tire sizing, to be honest. So as for how change in tire size or width would affect today's cars, the reason you would try wider rear tires, and this is certainly, I guess, obvious if you really care about the minutia of IndyCar. I shouldn't say care. Well, yeah, sorry. if you care about the minutia, but been tracking some of this stuff, you know about the weight of the energy recovery system, the quote hybrid system, added about 100 pounds to the rear of the car. It has overtaxed the rear axle, the rear tires. Just, it's more weight than this car was ever designed to carry. And despite Firestone's efforts to redesign tires, they can make rear tires that never degrade and survive all the crazy weight and downforce, but the car is going to be going super slow because the tires are going to be effectively made out of granite. Well, that doesn't make for great racing. So Firestone wants to make tires that put on a good show, have some degradation, have a peak, fall off, but are safe as well. The issue here is, oh boy, what can we do at the rear to just add more grip, add more stability? So the idea was, well, let's try a wider tire and see if and what that does. So I believe Alex Palou spoke about trying a wider tire at the Indy test that he did. They did a couple of weeks ago. So not just Phoenix, but I believe the big speedway as well. Wider rear tires were tried. So road course, street course can definitely handle what they're dealing with. There are very few corners in IndyCar road course, street course that are so long, sustained at crazy top speed to where you worry about tire stability, tire safety. It's the short ovals, even the speedways, but the constant loading. It's the sustained effort there. Peak loading, heat, you name it, getting put through the tires, rear tires in particular, where you go, how can we improve this new weight that's not going away? How can we improve its effects? So that's what comes to mind. This is why this would have been done or is being done. So provided there is nothing truly negative to it, I would assume that could be the direction IndyCar will go forward with Firestone, with slightly wider rear tires on ovals, or as many ovals as they feel would be necessary. As for change in tire size and width and how it would affect today's cars, again, if we're talking about, hey, with all the rearward weight, we've got not just rear stability issues, but the weight distribution is now off too much and just dealing with persistent understeer. Obviously, you try and do some things downforce-wise up front to balance things, but look at a similar thing going to a wider tire. I don't know if going to a larger diameter wheel and therefore going to a shorter, narrower sidewall, I don't know if that's something Firestone's wanting to truly go through with today's car, what you're asking about. So I think width is more of what we'll be looking to try and address right now. Lucas Lacasse says, Marshall, the idea of spec dampers being tested for the 2028 car, they get rid of an aspect of innovation and differentiation. What part would you like to see the most? I'm guessing you mean open the most? Not including engines. For me, Lucas says it'd be tires. But that's as likely as us getting non-aspirated V10s, sadly. Yeah. The shocks, the dampers. It's the smartest area to leave open for handling customization to meet a driver's needs and to flex the handling creativity from team to team. So if we're going to shut that down, as you mentioned, they're not opening up tires for individuality and innovation and differentiation there. You take away dampers, I mean, you go aero, but if you think dampers are expensive from leaving that open for R&D, aero. Hey, let's bankrupt the series, or teams, I should say. After that, I mean, hybridization's an area for sure. The use of the energy recovery system. It's an area where, for the manufacturers who love hybridization, they want to be able to play with the ERS, the software, how it gets used, the deployment, the regeneration. That's more of a manufacturer thing. I mean, if teams were told they could do that, they'd dive right in. But again, that's going to cost a lot of money, because even if the components stay the same, you're adding a lot more bench testing. You are adding a bunch more PhD level salaries. And so it's just trading one big expense for another. Teams can already play with the differentials, Lucas, and they do. Differential tuning, the way that they are built, the settings, handling is definitely affected by how differentials are set up. It's just a hot pain in the butt. So that was the only other thing that came to mind of like, well, where could teams really play around? And that stood out as like, yeah, maybe if we're shutting down shocks and all the other areas aren't going to work, maybe that's one. But you're just talking about a glowing red hot lump of heavy metal that you've got to strip half of the rear of the car apart to get to. Takes forever to change. Yeah. If that was it, if that was the one spot that was left to just do whatever you want, I don't mean anything, constantly variable CVTs not allowed, and all kinds of hydroelectric, pneumatic, whatever. I mean, I believe the rules say it's got to be all mechanical in there. You can't really monkey around so much, but maybe in there, but even that would cost. Here's the thing. It all costs money. Whatever it is, if you open the thing up and truly open it up, then a team is going to spend a ton of money on it. So the dampers, preaching again on this, dampers make sense. It's racing. You're tailoring the vehicle. Even if it's a spec car from a single manufacturer, and so many things on the car are spec. Well, they allow different engines. Okay, well, so that's different. Okay, well, what's the biggest thing that's going to affect the handling? The dampers, damper tuning. Got it. Okay. You take that away, you really are starting to get into a place where drivers are going to have some issues, depending on how spec you go with the dampers. What I understand with IndyCar, they're not looking to go to a true spec. Everybody gets the same exact shock, bolt them on your car, use it. That's all you get. Can't open them up, can't do anything to them. There's meant to be some options that teams can use to tune with them. But depending upon how spec they go, this could be the thing that drums some drivers out of IndyCar and maybe makes some others highly prized assets to acquire. We've seen with the addition of the aero screen, the change in balance to the car had a negative effect on some drivers. They went from being super happy to coming back one season later with that 50-ish pounds bolted on to the cockpit, and what that weight, not just the amount of weight, but where it sits up high, how it affected so many ways the car handled. They felt disconnected from the car, have not been able to get the best out of what they were once able to with those cars. Chuck the, 100 pounds into the back of the car with a hybrid. That has certainly shown itself to be something that has taken some drivers 2 years now, year and a half, 2 years to compensate for, mostly figure out. It's also, as we've seen, because he's just done it, identified Alex Palou as like the ultimate guy to deal with that weight and what it does to the car and how it's changed the driving of the car. Like, realize that it came in halfway through 2024, but you look at what Palou did second half of 24, but in particular, pretty much all of 2025. his driving style just matches what this new, with the aero screen and with the hybrid vehicle performance, demands of a driver. Make another significant change, and who knows, maybe if we go to darn near completely spec shocks, maybe that is something where whatever the build is, race to race, not something that Palou likes, and all of a sudden the car is a mystery or more of a mystery, and he's no longer super race winner champion, and maybe it elevates someone else. It's when you leave a thing open, like dampers, where you can individualize team to team car and its performance and its handling and allow virtuoso performances. You take away those freedoms and big areas of individuality, and I don't know if you get as many virtuoso performers. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, maybe the differentials, but if you're going to take away dampers, to me, that's just you've effectively surrendered individuality if you've done that. Andrew Staley, you've sent this back in discussing why Rick Mears walked away so abruptly, retired at the end of 1992, and how his career and Team Penske might look if he continued a few more seasons, saying that Rick, good old the Rocket, was his hero growing up. Yeah, he's one of my absolute favorite drivers as well, and just really thankful to have gotten to know him in my new role, at least, as a reporter monkey, and yeah, love spending time with the Rocket. So, sent this in last week, told you that it just fallen out of my brain. As you can hear, a lot of things are falling out of my brain. I take another sip of coffee and lose my voice yet again. So thinking back to this, Rick was dealing with a couple things. He'd had a pretty wicked crash the year before at the Indy 500. I think it was the year before. If it was 92, I apologize. He retired at the end of 92. My brain is farting on whether he crashed in 92 or 91. Obviously won the Indy 500 in 91, but so it must have been 92, a month of May. But been in IndyCar at that point, top level there, 14 years, I think, 14-ish years. Just remember him, when I asked him about this, talking about, just losing a little bit of that fire, that motivation, the get up, right? I want to get up at, crack of dawn, like some of the younger bucks are doing, and try and keep pace. Obviously, maintaining the same level of fitness and stamina once you're getting into your late 30s and 40s, it does become more of a challenge for sure than kids waking up at 25 and seemingly having to do nothing, and they're just already at their peak. Just remember hearing from him a bit of weariness, right? Been doing this for a long time. I don't know if my motivation is all the way there. Remember him mentioning, thinking about this. It's been on his mind for a little while, obviously, and won the Indy 500 as fourth in 1991. Don't remember exactly when the questions about retirement started to come in, whether it was end of off-season in 91 or early in 92. But I do remember him talking about wanting to test that theory. And instead of just being fully immersed with the team all the time, which he was, wanting to take a step back a little bit, right? Still driving, obviously, but just not being the all-day, everyday approach. Just a little bit of distance and see how it felt. Wanted to see if there was a longing there, and that would be an indicator. Nah, need to keep going. Not ready to retire. And him mentioning, yeah, I was feeling okay with that distance. Ultimately decided, I think it was the Penske Christmas party where he announced his retirement. Would say you could also see writing on the proverbial wall, right? Already had Paul Tracy coming into the team, young phenom. Before there was a Pato O'Ward, a Colton Herta, Just trying to think of modern, like young phenoms, a Kyle Kirkwood. There was Paul Tracy. And I would say, for those of you who were around back then might remember it, Paul coming out of Indy Lights into the IndyCar series, the next generation phenom thing around Paul was multitudes greater than anything related to Pato, Colton, Kirk, maybe the closest that comes to mind here. But we go back even more in other drivers. But just saying, modern context, think of someone coming up from Indy Lights, Indy NXT, where it seemed like everybody was like, watch out, this kid is going to tear through IndyCar in a couple years' time. That was Paul, but to an even bigger degree. He was already in the team, right? 92 partial season, but going to be there full time. 93. Emerson Fittipaldi, right? Super veteran as well. I think Rick could just see, though, tides were changing. Youth coming along. Al Unser Jr., I mean, he started his career, like 83? So wasn't exactly a young buck, but he was like already a champion, 1990, already Indy 500 winner. I mean, we look at what he did there in 92, month of May, obviously, but I think Rick could see that as he's dealing with some huge injuries, right? Some really nasty stuff. San Air, 83, 84, that another crash here, got pretty injured. Car turning on its side at Indianapolis. I think you just get a lot of those things converging, Andrew, and go, all right, I'm a four-time champion. Four-time winner of the Indy 500, multiple, IndyCar champion. I'm good. Would say that Rick's personality trait as well, one that I appreciate, never like overly thirsty, overly hungry, right? There's always a maturity. This is my job. I do love this. It's a passion, but this isn't something that I'm feeling desperate and, oh my gosh, and I have to have it every second. Who am I? What would I be without it? There's some drivers where that is their entire existence. You take racing away, and I'm telling you, I'd have no idea who they are, what they would do, what they would be about if they could find peace in life. Rick, at least the adult, married, kids coming up through racing, would say that the Rick Mears that really became an all-time great wasn't that guy who was just lost without racing. It had to fit in his world, in the construct of his life properly. And if not, ready to call time. And as he had, his son coming through junior open wheel around this time as well, it certainly became very important for him to support that. So anyways, I think he had a lot of things converging here all at once, Andrew. And while it was sad when it was announced, I don't know if it struck me as a surprise. If anything, it just felt like, yeah, time's right. Could have hung around for 93, 94, gotten a couple more Indy 500 wins, very likely, but that thirst to, oh my gosh, I can't live without it. Thankfully for him, he did not have that. Just retired with all the spoils, all the respect. Keith Lee says, with Mark Andretti's retirement, Colton Herta leaving IndyCar for the European route, who's the next up and coming driver to bring their family name plus history and reputation? IndyCar. Is it one of the Weldons? Is it Sebastian Montoya? Somebody else we're missing? Yeah, I feel like it's going to be Sebastian Weldon, unless there's we must get you into F1, which, knowing that he is supported by Andretti Global, TWG Motorsports could very well become a thing, but haven't heard much of anything on the Sebastian Montoya side in terms of trying to get over here to IndyCar. So even though it is a little bit removed, because now we're talking, granted, still the name, still the family, but the brother, I think Enzo Fittipaldi might be the next big name. Family history, obviously, with Grandpa. That could be pretty awesome. So I think that's where I would point to the most likely in terms of next up, who's going to get there next. I believe Enzo's got some pretty good support here doing a full season in Indy NXT, and hopefully it goes well for him, and door to IndyCar opens for 2027. Darren Dubois, MP, is there any wiggle room in the charter system to allow McLaren to run Ryan Hunter-Reay in the Indy GP like they used to with good old Juan Monterior as a warm-up race? Yeah, there's nothing in the charter system that would bar, to my knowledge, any of the charter teams from submitting extra entries at basically any race. The difference is it would not be given a guaranteed starting spot. So our guy RHR in that McLaren would need to out-qualify somebody with a non-guaranteed starting position or with a startup. Okay, I am brain farting here. We do know that the 10 charter teams and the 25 charters that were extended guarantees starts for all of those 25 cars at every race except for the Indy 500. We know the one team not given a charter, being Prema, was, I'm told, guaranteed participation in the races, but I'm guessing that if another non-charter entry were to show up, I'm guessing those two Prema entries, one of those two would be subject to not competing in the race if that extra car being fielded by a chartered entry were to go faster than one of those two Premas. I think that's the way it works. Mind you, never been given or handed the charter to read through to know, but I think I asked my way through this and kind of got to the answer that I gave you. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But yeah, as I understand it, of the 27 full-time entries, assuming Prema comes back and there are 27 yet again, the every other team except Prema is guaranteed to start at the Indy Grand Prix. If in time trials a Ryan Hunter-Reay were to go faster than one of the two Premas, or who knows how many other cars he'd go faster with, but assuming his qualifying put him ahead of one, if not both, of the Premas, I'm guessing the slowest Prema would be the one to not participate. I think that's how it would work. And if I'm wrong, what else is new? Andrew Miller is not a question. You've had this new quote, tune, the show tune done by our friend Roger Warwick, for a couple of episodes now. And it is still weird to see, quote, Willie P on the Gainbridge car. Actual question, any idea what the plans are for Sebastian Weldon next season? Well, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, our guy, Mr. Warwick, did that, I think, like almost right after the season ended. So used it a number of times, but glad that you noticed it. I don't know what Sebastian's plans are for next season. I have a note here meaning to reach out to his mom, and I'm not sure if they're back from Macau or what the plan is, but wanted to dial up at least Sebastian, maybe the two of them, for a short little video podcast episode. Ask about Macau, where he was on pole in the Formula 4 race. Race didn't go as intended, but ask him about the experience and ask him about next year and what he'd like to do at least and where he hopes to race. If that's been announced and I've totally missed it, well, apologies yet again. Doug Wright, we're getting down to the final items here. And it looks like we're at least, yeah, not too far into 1 hour beyond. Sending good vibes to you and your wife. And thank you so much, Doug. Says, I know the teams get their Leader Circle money, but do they get any prize money at the end of the year where they finish in the championship, or is it just for bragging rights? So there is a race by race prize money payout. It's just very, very small. So I am not aware of a end of year prize money payout. The Leader Circle for the top 22 is mentioned. I believe that gets paid out in quarterly installments. So it's not a lump sum, but yeah, I think like to win a race is like 30-ish grand, and second is, I don't know, 10 or 15. Like, those are obviously big amounts of money to you and I. For the teams, it's a nominal amount. Granted, you win enough races and cool, you can put okay amount of extra money in the bank, but effectively what the Leader Circle does is take the vast majority of prize money set aside for the year and then just distributes that equally among the top 22. So instead of it being a big end of season prize fund to hand out or a big per race, that's all just been vacuumed up. I don't know what the percentage is, 90% of it, 95, whatever, but just effectively taken, set aside up front, carved into 22 slices, distributed to those 22 entries in quarterly installments. Keith Lee, you're back wondering where Tim Cindric goes. I have no idea. Haven't spoken to Tim, texted with him a month or two ago, and he's on my list of folks to reach out to and hope to at some point in time. Asked about how his dismissal at Team Penske affects his partial ownership of the Penske IndyCar team. I have no idea, since I don't know what business arrangement he and Roger did or did not come to. I don't believe that's been shared with anybody, so I just don't know. Ed Joris says, with IndyCar racing on Saturday afternoon in Phoenix, isn't the series again getting treated like a red-headed stepchild? I wonder when that became a thing, by the way, when the red-headed stepchild became, granted, it's an old expression, but the default poorly treated thing. And since I'm not a redhead or a stepchild, I may be saying something really dumb. So if you're listening and you're a redhead and a stepchild, you've been treated poorly. Sorry if I've just kind of triggered something there. It says IndyCar is the warm-up act for the second tier NASCAR series, right? How is this a partnership? I don't see what IndyCar is getting from this other than another oval race. Saturday night would have been great. Saturday afternoon seems like a bit of a meh. What am I missing? Yeah, I'm there with you on the same thing, Ed. Mentioned this on the show not too long ago. I'd heard that IndyCar was set for a late morning Saturday slot. Was told by someone at the series somewhat recently that no, that is wrong. That is not the case. So I would assume that a Saturday afternoon, as you listed here, is indeed the thing. Whatever it is, it's a NASCAR weekend. IndyCar is there, but I know we, since this is an IndyCar show, love the idea of IndyCar knowing that it's not going to be the headlining act, could at least be the one that opens for the headliner. Like you said, a Saturday night race or the feature race on Saturday. Well, they do have their mid-tier series, and that is meant to be their number 2 to the Cup series, so I can understand why they wouldn't, assuming this is what the schedule plays out to be, put IndyCar ahead of that series. They have their own warm-up act for the main concert. I can understand why IndyCar would not be moved ahead of that. It gets IndyCar that additional oval race, right? Got it. That's a good thing. Not going to Iowa, so okay. I'm going to go back to Phoenix. Depending on how things go audience-wise, who knows? Maybe this could have a really good lead in. I think the second tier Xfinity has been on the CW. Is that correct, or is that trucks? I don't know. Did I just overly acknowledge? I don't really know or follow. I understand there's a belief that this could have good ratings for IndyCar, this being the Fox portion of the season. I don't know all the ways that's going to happen, but I'm with you. I'm a little skeptical that this is going to be amazing. Been to a lot of races throughout my career where either been there as the main act and something like a Trucks or Xfinity is the, call it warm up, or the second tier, or just say non-preferred series at the event, and kind of show up, do their thing, and go away. And for me, at least, they're barely noticed. Crowds, granted, like at Texas Motor Speedway, sometimes those trucks, or again, whatever it would have been, Xfinity or preceding sponsors' names, but the second tier would have had a pretty good audience, sometimes better than we had for IndyCar, but whatever it might be. Hey, this is a IndyCar event, but, Grand Am is here running some sort of something, maybe on the Roval while IndyCar is on the oval itself. Just been to too many things like this, Ed, and maybe you have as well, where whatever it is that is the main attraction, it's the main attraction. And it represents itself that way. Fans tend to show up and treat it that way. The thing that's a little bit of the misfit toy, the odd series out that gets put onto the calendar, it could be fun, cool, fast, unique, could be all those things. I'm just struggling to think, with exception to a number of those, I think Friday night truck races or whatever it was at Texas Motor Speedway, in way too many instances I've just seen this kind of scenario. In this case, it's IndyCar showing up as the misfit toy on the NASCAR event. Just not really work out in that misfit's favor. So, with you. I'm in that same what am I missing mode, but since I'm a glass half full guy, I'm hoping that everything works out wonderfully. Andy Brumbaugh, you are penultimate, or just about penultimate, in the questions here. Say, can you talk about what's going on at Prema? No money, but they need money, but people are still working. Seems like there's something happening. Okay, so let me address that first. Yes, there's money being spent to cover payroll. I'm told, was told this today. I haven't been able to go fact check it yet, so it could be wrong. But I'm told that they are signed up for any and all tests that are in the works here ahead of next season. So that would be a positive thing. I don't know where their funding is coming from to cover payroll. I was told by somebody their estimate is it could be as much as $750,000 per month. I don't know if that's straight payroll, meaning just for employees, or more of just the business itself, right? Keeping things going off season, whether it's rent or lease, renting a building or leasing a building, trucks. And again, I think it's maybe more, let's look at about 750 or so at least. But let's just say 750 grand during the off season to cover off employees, keep the lights on, pay for the things that need to be paid each month, internet bills and whatnot. If someone's coming out of pocket to the tune of $750,000 per month here during the off season, that's a significant amount. And if the team was struggling financially to complete the season, we've yet to hear anything about new sponsors, investors. Told there might have been a quote from team ownership about them searching for new investment, which again, kind of reported that back in August, that team was needing that to continue. That's not a small amount of money each month to expend to try and find funding to keep going, at least in competition. So of the Arsenio Hall, fingers to the dome, things that make you go, where would $750,000 per month potentially be coming from to keep the team afloat in IndyCar among the dozen other series it competes in Europe and internationally? Where would that be coming from if money is really tight? It's got to be coming from someone who wants to keep them afloat. Part two of the question from Andy: could Prema be an option for someone like Connor Daly, as it could be a way to bring in some funding? Then says current driver contracts would, of course, need to be figured out. Potentially. So, business model wise, team came into IndyCar and a big angel investor, as we've been told or alleged or believe, that angel investor decided to hit stop on that investing at whatever point halfway through the season, and that's where the real struggles began. If they were to switch away from the big investment, big someone paying a lot of money for us to go racing, hire two pros in Callum Ilott and Robert Schwartzman, and that were to switch to, say, Juncos Hollinger Racing model, right? Keep in mind, through 2024, paid drivers, hired drivers, right? And did all of it that way. Decided to change the business model, take on paying driver/drivers. Stingray Rob came in, paid full boat, rumored $9 million. Don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's been the rumor. Connor came in, right? Lead the team. I don't know how much he generated, but I'm sure it's a couple million, 3, 4, who knows, however much. But if Prema were to need to switch to a paying driver model, with the questions about Stingray and whether he would continue at Juncos Hollinger, if that amount of money I just mentioned is anywhere near accurate, if it's 7, if it's 8, if it's whatever, that would be a very helpful number to enter an IndyCar for a season. Connor, if he's able to raise, again, half-ish of a budget, that would certainly be a really helpful thing. Mentioning this scenario, think about the team that Connor and Stingray drove for last season. I mean, if Prema were to switch to a Juncos business model, could we see both Juncos drivers at Prema? If Prema were to decide to do that, I'm guessing that could be something for them to consider. You have a fully funded driver like Jacob Abel, who would certainly be able to, pay whatever amount needed to be at Prema. So that could be another option if that's a path they wanted to go down and the Abels wanted to do that. So would say yes, all such things could happen. Just about decisions and whether team wanted to do that, if it needs to do that, if it doesn't find big sponsor or big new investor, and the aforementioned drivers would want to go there and be part of things. Feels like they've built a really good team. So not that I would want Callum out of the series or Robert out of the series, but if that's the direction the team had to go to stay afloat, seems like whomever would pay to be in a Prema car would be part of a really good team. Right Turn Lover says it's a procedural question rather than content. Whether it be an audio track release of the video podcasts, says some elderly, says me, like to listen but not watch on the hoof. Potentially, be super honest here. I am at my absolute limit bandwidth wise to churn out what I do churn out. So the amount of time it takes just to make the video content, the editing for YouTube in wide format, then render and without the bugs, and then do some form of vertical content with that same thing for social, and then to share such things on social and promote and blah, blah, blah. Like, not trying to sound complainy here, just sharing that and then I need to pull an audio track alone and do that. Certainly possible. Would just say with every episode, no. Instances maybe like the one just now with John Doonan, probably more likely because it's something where we covered 4 or 5 topics, and at least for me found pretty interesting from what the boss had to say there. All right, actually, 2 more to close here. Addicted to Racing says, no question, just want to wish the best to you, your wife, and the bosses of the house. And how long until St. Pete? St. Pete's definitely a thing, but I think I saw recently it's like 70 days or something to the Rolex 24 at Daytona or the Roar before. So yeah, month and a half or whatever before we get St. Pete, going to be in Daytona. So that's when my season starts. So yeah, coming up fast. And then we close, Lance Snyder, our Minister of Mirth, official Minister of Mirth, says, also not a question, just thank you for putting up with all of us loonies for another year. As the year draws to a close, may your holiday be bright, shiny, and filled with IndyCar LED panels. And of course, by holidays, I obviously mean the only one that matters, your favorite Festivus. All right, you can stick your Festivus where it don't shine there, Snyder. But I did intentionally read that, knowing it was coming up, to let you wedge in a worst, least funny show of all time, Seinfeld, into the podcast, just because I can't stand it. All right, y'all. Hey, told you we were going to do the show for as long as it meaningfully needed to go, and it was a little bit longer than an hour, but I did indeed get to every single thing you sent in, and I appreciate y'all. I appreciate Jerry for making the questions happen. Kind of appreciate Lance, but not really. Definitely big thanks to y'all, to the Justice Brothers at justicebrothers.com, TorontoMotorsports.com as well. Their modern motor racing memorabilia. If you get a chance to check out our thepruittstore.com, please take some things home. All that's getting put towards our house fund. And then, our little YouTube channel there, Marshall Pruitt. I'm going to try and get more content up there in video form, and then also at Marshall Pruitt on X, and then at Marshall.Pruitt on good old Instagram. So, all right, I'm going to shut up my face and try and fart this stuff out, and I'll speak to y'all soon.